Ronald Reagan, the president at the time, always talked about building up the military. This included its members and its technology. He was not able to keep away from the pressure that was coming from the public. Protesting began in the early 1800s, 1980s, not the 1800s, in the United States and in Europe. These protests were used to show hate of nuclear weapons. People protested that nuclear arms should not be in use and that they should stop being made. People did this because of growing fear that there would be a nuclear conflict between the United States and the Soviet Union, which is Russia. During one of these known protests in 1981, peace activists set up camp in a camp called Greenham Common, England. This camp was set up outside of a military base that was going to house one of the many missiles. At this particular camp, people sang, danced, and played skits for peace. Women at this camp were especially important because they used their resources to try and show peace and that the United States needed peace. This helped prove the fact that that the use of nuclear weapons promoted the women's peace. All these protests and activities were all part of a bigger nuclear freeze movement is what they call it. The movement began in 1980, was known for putting a mutual freeze on testing, deploying, and creating weapons, specifically nuclear missiles. In the year 1982, a vote was put in place to see how many Americans wanted this nuclear freeze. Over 50% of the people wanted the nuclear freeze to happen right away. They didn't want to wait for it to take longer. It was then handed over to Congress, where it was passed by only 2 votes. 2 years later, in 1984, Ronald Reagan was reelected as president and was able to bring down the United States military stance. This made it so he was more able to negotiate with Russia. The Cold War was almost down to nothing by this time. Big changes were made in the Soviet Union, which then allowed for the Cold War to finally come to an end. Overall, the many protests that people attended, helped allow for more peace within the country. With the decreased amount of nuclear weapons, people were able to worry less about an outbreak of a nuclear war.